That was not the song I asked to start with.
Yes, welcome to live television. This is the Atheist Experience. Welcome and thank you for watching. I'm your host, Ashley Perrien, and my co-host this week, Russell Glasser.
Hi.
Matt is away taking a well-deserved vacation this week, so he will be back next week. All right, a couple quick announcements before we get started. This is, again, the Atheist Experience. We're being hosted by the Atheist Community of Austin, a nonprofit educational organization promoting positive atheism and separation of church and state. We have weekly meetings every Sunday down at Romeo's at 1500 Barton Springs Road, I believe it is. From 11 o'clock to 1 o'clock. And any atheist-friendly people are more than welcome to come down there and join us and meet us and see what we're all about and ask questions. In addition to the regular Sunday morning meetings, we also have an occasional Wednesday meeting, which is usually a bit more fun relaxation. There are the titles. This Wednesday, for instance, the 17th, we're actually having bowling at 300 Lanes, Austin. And again, that's this Wednesday, the 17th. It's at 7 o'clock. Next Wednesday, we're going to have some billiards. Again, all of this is on our website. If you go to atheist-community.org and click on the calendar or the Meet Us link, it'll all show up there, have links, details, times, places, and all the other good information. In addition to this show, we've also got the Nonprofits, which is an internet audio show. That's every other Saturday from 2 to 3:30. And the next show for that is going to be this upcoming Saturday, October 20th. And that's hosted by Matt Dillahunty and also Dennis Loubet, and a couple others are also on that from time to time.
Shilling's been on it for the last few weeks.
Okay, recently, okay.
Yes.
All right. Yeah, it's a slightly different audience than this show, but again, excellent one to watch or listen to. I believe that is it for all of our normal announcements.
Wow, those went by fast.
Yes,
2 minutes.
I may be missing something, but I'm not the normal host, so I wouldn't know. Anyway, like I say, this is a live call-in show. We're going to be putting the phone number up in a little while. But first, Russell, you've got a couple things that you wanted to hit on, I believe. And yeah. I've also got a few news stories if we need to get to them.
Yeah, I like to go to calls early today because I don't want to spend too much time talking. I kind of feel like this is the first opportunity I've had to sit down in a month.
You've been somewhat busy, I understand.
Yeah, I have. I'm in my last semester of grad school. I just generated a 50-page draft of my master's thesis.
Wow, congratulations.
Had 2 midterms yesterday. And
yet you're still prepared for today.
Not so much. I did what I could though, and one of the things I did was heavily rip off my master's thesis and blog posts I've done lately, because that's what I do when I'm not wanting to devote a lot of time to doing the show. But I've earned getting lazy on my show topic.
It happens.
So I'm relaxing now. I'm on the downhill coast toward the end of my grad school degree, and hopefully I'll get to be around more for more ACA stuff when I'm done in December.
Yes, not too much more to go.
Yeah, I'm really looking forward to it. Let's see here. So what was I going to talk about today? My topic today, you can find as I usually try to do with my TV show topics. You can go to atheistexperience.blogspot.com. It is the TV show blog, and before coming on, I posted a bunch of links which you can go ahead and look at if you want to follow along with me on the various stories I'll be covering. And the one that you're going to be looking for is a one about bias, because that's kind of what my master's thesis is about. I'm a computer science student, but this touched on journalism somewhat. And I want to talk about the idea of bias in general and why it's not necessarily a bad thing. Now, in addition to having a show blog, I was hoping to get even more high-tech today by introducing something new to the TV show, which is I've mentioned this before. We now have wireless internet in the studio, and I thought it would be really cool if we could start streaming actual internet videos in here to illustrate the things I'm talking about. Unfortunately, we kind of came down to the wire on that today, so we didn't actually get the video up for you. But I want to just play you the audio from a trailer from this new movie that's coming out, which is called Expelled. It is going to star Ben Stein, who is best known as the Bueller guy from Ferris Bueller.
He also had a game show for a while.
He had, Win Ben Stein's Money.
Yeah.
He's basically a comedian who's somewhat conservative and fairly religious, apparently, and has made a career out of playing smart, boring people. In a very funny manner,
Yes.
I might add.
Yeah, he's usually been quite good.
Yeah. So we don't have the video, but I think we have the audio. Can we get that? Give me a sign from the studio if we can actually get that. Here we go.
If you have questioned Darwinism, that's it. Your career is over.
I have been told to shut up.
Just stand up and question Darwinism. You'll find out how risky that is.
There are people out there who want to keep science in a little box where it can't possibly touch God.
Religion. I mean, it's just fantasy, basically.
Scientists are not allowed to even think thoughts that involve an intelligent creator.
We cannot accept to treat intelligent design as an alternative scientific theory.
I'm frightened by this, but I'm not going to let it stop me from investigating and from speaking about it.
Anyway, for the record, that was the music I was planning to put on for the opening music today, just to make fun of Ben Stein.
Yeah, the litany of errors in that was surprising.
Well, I mean, a lot of it was apparently him interviewing scientists who were saying all those things, like,
Yeah.
we cannot stand to treat evolution,
Well, also what he was
creationism
saying,
as a real theory.
I mean, partly it's showboating, but scientists can't even think about working with an intelligent designer or something along those
Which,
lines. Like,
of course, they can.
yeah.
I mean, they haven't perfected the mind-reading devices.
exactly.
in
There's no thought police
schoolrooms yet.
just yet.
Anyway, sorry we couldn't show you the audio, but if you want to see it, and bear in mind, I'm not endorsing the seeing of this movie, although you can if you want to, but it's expelledthemovie.com.
Okay.
And it casts, you couldn't see it, but it's got a bunch of captions that says, every generation has its rebel. And then it shows, Ben Stein wearing a suit coat and shorts showing his knobby knees.
It's sort of like one of those British
and
school
tennis
uniforms
shoes.
almost.
Yes. And the point is that Ben Stein is this rebel badass, which I think is a perfect illustration of the creationist filter on the world, is casting Ben Stein as an awesome rebel.
Yeah, which, no.
So this movie, as I gather from the trailer, and I plan to see it when it comes out, this movie is going to basically have the theme that there is this scientific conspiracy, a bias, if you will, against creationism and for evolution, which is unjustified and unfair. And it shows this series of scientists coming on and saying, we can't countenance having this stuff in school. And then on the website introduction, it has this quote from Richard Dawkins, which is not attributed to any source, so I wonder if he even said it. But he said, if people think God is interesting, the onus is on them to show that there is anything to talk about. Otherwise, they should just shut up about it. And of course, you're supposed to be wildly outraged and indignant by this kind of quote.
Of course.
But I'm not. Now, creationists and intelligent design people have this sort of mantra that all they're really trying to do is not really get religion into the schools, but they're trying to make things fair.
Yes.
I mean, get rid of the stodgy old scientific establishment's bias towards evolution.
Exactly. We're not trying to get rid of evolution. We just want equal time.
Yes. And I want to say something about bias. I'm for it.
Absolutely.
Now, when I say I'm for bias, I don't want to imply that I'm for blind prejudice or that I'm even in favor of bias of one theory over another theory, because there are part of the nature of science is that everything is always tentative. Some things are very well confirmed, but there's always the possibility that a scientific revolution could come along and completely overthrow the old mode of thinking. And I don't want to discount that could ever happen, even for evolution.
Of course.
Is the thing that fills that gap going to be intelligent design? Probably not. And I want to say that when I'm for bias, what I mean is that I'm for the kind of bias that science really does have, which is bias towards things that are probably true.
Not to put too fine a point on it, but...
You can go too far in being unbiased, where you have a situation where you don't want to say that anything you don't want to say that anything is better than another, and you don't want to reject something just because it's complete nonsense. And I think really that's the kind of unbiased look at the information that creationists are after. I mean, for example, there was this very famous, I guess famous among the circles that I read, but there was this incident at the recent Dover trial where Michael Behe was talking about making science more open to different kinds of theories, and the opposing lawyer said something to the effect of, doesn't astrology basically fall into that category? And he said, well, yes, actually, I guess it would fall into that.
Yeah.
So I mean, Michael Behe's idea of expanding the meaning of science extends to astrology, which has no shred of scientific support whatsoever.
Yes.
And as an interesting side note, I also have a link on the blog right now to a story in the New York Times about this movie.
The Expelled.
Expelled, right? Where it says scientists feel miscast in a film on life's origins. It says, and I'll just read a little bit of this, a few months ago, the evolutionary biologist Richard Dawkins received an email message from a producer at Rampant Films inviting him to be interviewed for a documentary called Crossroads. The film, with Ben Stein, the actor, economist, and freelance columnist, as its host, is described on Rampant's website as an examination of the intersection of science and religion. Dr. Dawkins was an obvious choice, an eminent scientist who teaches at Oxford University in England. He is also an outspoken atheist who has repeatedly likened religious faith to a mental defect. But now, Dr. Dawkins and other scientists who agreed to be interviewed say they are surprised and in some cases angered to find themselves not in Crossroads, but in a film with a new name and one that makes the case for intelligent design, an ideological cousin of creationism. The film, Expelled, No Intelligence Allowed, also has a different producer, Premise Media. The film is described in its online trailer as a startling revelation that freedom of thought and freedom of inquiry have been expelled from publicly funded high schools, universities, and research institutions. Mm-hmm. So they interviewed a bunch of scientists and basically lied to them about what kind of film they were going to be in. But also they have this kind of presentation where they're trying to garner sympathy by saying that intelligent design just isn't allowed in schools. And it isn't allowed in schools because it sucks as science.
Yes. It's not allowed in science classes because
Right.
it's not science.
And I've said over and over again that if you want to get intelligent design into schools, the way to go about it is to go convince a bunch of scientists that it's true and get some research and literature published on the subject, get past peer review, and generate some scientific support for it, because teachers, while they have an important role to play in science education, teachers are not responsible for the courses of science classes. Scientists are responsible for the content of science classes, and what creationists try to do is whine, oh, scientists are being unfair to us, so let's bypass them and get legislated as we have to be in there.
Yeah, they're kind of running it under the assumption that Reader's Digest is a reputable scientific journal.
Right.
And if you get published in there, therefore you have credibility in
Right.
science. You don't.
I mean, anyone with a certain amount of money can publish a book.
Exactly.
But it takes real rigor and adherence to the scientific method to actually get something accepted as a theory. You want to take our first call?
Sure. We have got Joe Zamecki on the line. Joe, you there?
Howdy.
Hey.
Hi.
Well, great show as usual, y'all. Russell and Ashley. It's good
Thank
to see
you.
y'all on TV.
Thanks.
Thank you.
You going to be with us for the big reunion?
TV
Yes.
show. Yeah, anniversary show. I want to be there. Yeah.
Yeah, 2 weeks from now, right?
2 weeks.
We're going to have most of the past hosts from the show appearing together, and that's
Yes.
going to be a lot of fun.
Yes, definitely.
Oh yeah. Well, I just wanted to talk about this attack on science that a lot of creationists have waged, and certainly with this dishonest tactic with the movie producers of the movie Expelled. I wonder if they would ever think that cheating is a legitimate reason for a student to be expelled, because they cheated in order to do this, right? It was a part of their movie that they
Yeah.
cheated as a tactic.
Okay.
So we've got to think, what is their idea of fair play in the classroom, or at least appropriate presentation of materials, if they come with that kind of tactic? But I really think also that it's fascinating that one reason why a lot of creationists are down on science, I think, is because science cannot put God under a microscope and then tell the world that there's a God.
Well, you know, they say that science can't do that. I mean, you know, they come up with these waffly definitions of God where you can't experiment on it because he's mysterious and hides from the microscopes. Whereas, I mean, the point that a lot of this recent atheist literature makes is that, you know, if God were real, then there should be massive evidence for it all over the place, and it should be easy to put it to the test.
Yeah.
But yeah, I mean, you're right.
I have an analogy about that. In fact, I've always said that the very first white Europeans who saw the Grand Canyon probably couldn't believe their eyes. The story goes anyway, but imagine them going back to camp, back eastward, to tell people, and then telling everybody, hey, there's a hole a mile wide over there. It's the biggest hole in the world, probably. Looks like the whole world is cracked. Now, those people would be kind of justified in saying, whoa, that's a wild claim. Do you have any evidence for that? And he should say, yes, come with me and we will go and look at this thing, and then I can step back and shut up, and you can stand there and behold what is real, because it is real. Now, always Christians have excuses. They retroactively come along and say that science can't put God under a microscope because there's something wrong with science.
Right, or they say, you can't see this big hole in the earth because you don't want to see it.
Yeah. Yeah.
You're biased.
Exactly.
Well, they also have to say, I haven't seen it either, and I think that's okay. It's not
Right.
so important that we be skeptical about it, but it is important to them. So it's quite dishonest, I think, and we really do have the advantage in taking the side of honesty, in that with science as a method, we can cut past the fog and smoke and mirrors and really get to the truth, which is scary to Christians because they've got to go with faith, i.e., nothing to show for it other than a story and faith, and you convince yourself. Scientists are not that way, and science is not that way, and that scares the bejesus out of a lot of Christians, and I can certainly understand that. Well, thanks a lot. I just had to say that sort of thing, and
Okay.
y'all have a great show.
All right. Thanks for calling.
Thanks.
Have a great day.
Bye. So, I mean, bottom line is science has a bias towards empirical evidence. and it would be very easy to consider God if people presented some kind of empirical evidence for him. But since there is none, that falls outside the scope of science. And I think that really is what Richard Dawkins is saying when he says, if people think God is interesting, the onus is on them to show that there is anything to talk about.
Yeah.
He doesn't mean that they should shut up and never talk about ways that you can investigate God. He just means that you should shut up about God as a scientific theory if you don't have any scientific evidence to bring to the table.
Yeah, put up or shut up.
Right.
Yeah, a quick note here, actually. This was a comic that I got from one of the websites. I don't have the website address, unfortunately, but it kind of goes into some of this. I'm not going to bother to show it. It's not much to see, but
Talking heads.
It's talking heads type thing. I am a geologist for the Earth. She calls to me. I am an astronomer for the cosmos. She calls to me. I am a biologist for life. She calls to me. I am a physicist for nature. She calls to me. I am a young Earth creationist, for that other stuff frightens and confuses me. And I think to a certain extent that's true. It's not understanding the scientific process and how things work, and so if you don't understand it, it's kind of this black box that says these things are true and I'm going to reject these things over here, and you don't know why they're rejecting those
Right,
things.
and of course there is a process to accepting certain things as true and rejecting certain other things, and anybody can understand that process if they put in the effort. That's kind of the idea behind science, is that everything you do should be verifiable by everyone. But creationists don't think that is fair, and I think it's perfectly reasonable to be biased in favor of that process, because as we've seen over and over throughout history, finding the truth by just making stuff up and deciding to believe it doesn't work so well.
Yeah. And it's also important to note, too, it's very often kind of viewed that science is a very unreliable thing because it's always changing. There's always new discoveries being made, and we know more things now than we did before. And so how can you rely on what we know today? Because it may very well change next week.
Right.
Normally the changes are relatively small steps. It's advances in knowledge. It's not completely revolutionary as in, hey, everything that we knew about cosmology, ignore all of it. We've got something new now. It's relatively small changes, and they don't see that. I mean, it was announced years ago or whatever, Neanderthals are not a direct earlier, I'm losing the words here, but we are not directly descended from Neanderthals.
Yeah.
And since we now know that, hey, evolution is complete bunk. Not the case. There is a lot of stuff to it, and we're learning about it. We're fine-tuning theories and ideas and so on. And just because we learn more doesn't mean that everything else has to be thrown out.
Yeah.
So it's still valid.
There are issues of bias in other areas besides science. This isn't going to be another evolution show, really. It's just an example. But there are other areas where the charges of bias are often leveled, and one of those is at the media. Now, I want to throw out a disclaimer before I get into this topic, because I am a flaming liberal and don't speak for the atheist community of Austin in some of the things I say. But there's often this perception that there's a liberal bias in the media. And I'm not going to come right out and say that there's not, but I want to explore the idea of what it would mean for the media to have a media bias, to a liberal bias, and whether some things are described as a bias when in fact they aren't. And this actually does bring me to the topic of my master's thesis, because what I was doing for my master's thesis was basically inspired by a Daily Show clip where they were making fun of the fact that there was really big important news of the day, and all that CNN could talk about all day was Paris Hilton.
Yeah.
And I thought it was funny that not only were the CNN anchors talking about Paris Hilton all day, but they were apologizing for talking about Paris Hilton, as if the viewers were really fed up and annoyed with Paris Hilton
But
and didn't want to hear about
cover
it.
the news.
Yeah,
though.
but you have to cover it anyway because Paris Hilton is so important, right? And, you know, this kind of follows a trend that I noticed when I was in college, because back in the early 90s, there was the O.J. Simpson trial.
Yeah.
Mid-90s or so. And, I mean, my God, the news was just dominated by, there was an O.J. Simpson story every night for a year.
Yeah. Yeah.
And I didn't care about O.J. Simpson. I guess people assumed that other people cared about O.J. Simpson. But, I mean, it didn't seem like particularly relevant news, at least not after the first couple of months,
Yeah.
certainly.
Yeah.
And it was boring to me.
Yeah.
I mean, you
Certainly
know,
wasn't worthy of a new story every single night.
Right.
A weekly update.
yeah,
whatever.
sure, maybe, if that. But yeah, this you know, media is something that I've always been very interested in. I majored in computer science and minored in political science, which is an odd combination, but I thought I should put this to work. And one of the things that I'd studied and have talked about a little bit on the show was data mining and sort of analyzing huge amounts of information and coming up with relevant trends. And I thought, can you figure out sort of what the media's bias is by looking at a cross-section of the news and then sort of taking kind of an informal survey of things that people seem to be interested in on the internet and figuring out what people want to read about. And so a lot of my research was based in the website dig.com,
Okay.
where you can go to Dig, you can submit a news story that you got from somewhere else, and then other people can go in and look at that web page that you mentioned and give it a rating. They can say, yes, I like this, and then it collects a point for each person who votes it up. And I wanted to see what kind of stories people were interested in. Are people interested in stories about presidential candidates? Are they interested in stories about Paris Hilton or Anna Nicole Smith being dead, which was kind of a big story? You know, she's still dead. Update. And she still didn't do that much that was interesting as
Yeah.
far as I'm concerned. I mean, appear in Playboy,
Yeah.
marry a guy who died very shortly, who was rich,
Yeah.
and have a reality show for a little while, which was just a train wreck. Yeah, I watched it. A couple times.
One of your guilty pleasures.
I wouldn't even say it was a pleasure.
Just guilty.
I just wanted to see what was up with it. So in that way, I guess maybe I'm guilty of having
Skewing the
contributed.
stats.
Right. But I mean, I wanted to see whether media covers these kinds of stories a lot, and they do.
Yeah,
I mean,
of course.
in fact, one of the odd things I found out was that New York Times, for instance, seems to have a lot of Anna Nicole Smith stories. They have a lot of stories on other things, but
Yeah.
the Anna Nicole Smith was a little bit high in their ratings. And I compared it to presidential candidates like Rudy Giuliani and Hillary
Okay.
Clinton and stuff.
So their percentage of stories was higher than.
Yeah,
You would
kind
have
of. I mean,
expected, at
I
least.
had I had to kind of fiddle around with the metrics.
Yeah.
But and I'm going to be done with that next month. But I've got my first draft out. Anyway, when I went to Dig to look at the ratings for these topics, I found out something very interesting. When it comes to stories like Paris Hilton, Anna Nicole Smith, Britney Spears, a lot of stories are submitted about those topics. I mean, like more than most other topics, even a lot more. But the ratings are very low. People read these stories, but they don't like them. They don't want to hear about them. They generally get like ratings of 3s or 2s or,
Okay.
Fairly low average ratings. There is one topic that was actually extremely high rated, much, much higher on average than any other topic I covered. And that was Rudy Giuliani. But if you go to the dig.com webpage, and you look at the stories that get high ratings and are about Rudy Giuliani, most of them are negative. In other words, what people really like to read more than anything else on Dig is stories that bash Rudy Giuliani. Now, I just want to throw something out there. You know, I'm not going to say that it's right to want to read stories that say that Rudy Giuliani sucks. But what my question is basically, if people want to read stories about negative stories about Rudy Giuliani, and the media writes a lot of stories that are negative about Rudy Giuliani, are they really exhibiting a media bias? In a way, yeah, kind of. I mean, there's different points of view on what the media is supposed to be covering. Now, I'm of the school of thought that the media is not just supposed to be entertainment.
Yeah.
It is, as a practical reality. It's a business, and it's in the business of selling advertising dollars. That's their business model. And so it's in their interest to do as much as possible for, to get people interested in what they call news.
Yeah.
Whether that's O.J. Simpson, or whether it's Paris Hilton, or whether it's Rudy Giuliani, or New Orleans, or Abu Ghraib, or Blackwater.
Yeah.
I'm of the opinion that that the most important function of the media, sort of like science, is to inform people of what seems to be really going on. Now, like with science, there's the same kind of warnings that and disclaimers that you should throw out there. Like there's no such thing as knowing the absolute truth. Everything is tentative. Everything is sort of probabilistic. Everything could be overthrown by new information. Having said that, there appear to be stories which are accurate, but look bad for one side or the other. And when a story is written that makes a certain group of people look bad, that story is described as being biased, when in fact it's just reporting what's true. Now that's one model of the media, and I'm going to throw out an example of that in a minute. But another thing that the media could be doing, and I touched on this a minute ago, is the media could be putting out stories that are of interest to people. So this is where your Rudy Giuliani bashing stories would come in. It may not be particularly true that Rudy Giuliani is a bad person, but if the media is in the business of entertaining people and catering to the masses and pandering to the lowest common denominator, then one of the ways they could do that is to serve up stories that are about things that people want to read. I'll give you an example right now. George Bush. George Bush's ratings have had their ups and downs, but I think it's pretty undeniable, even by, say, Fox News, that Bush's ratings are pretty down right now. I'm looking at a page at pollingreport.com right now that says the latest number is 35%. It's been as low as 25%. And so I want to ask you something. Often it's said that the media is exhibiting a liberal bias when it posts a story that's anti-conservative, or it's exhibiting a conservative bias when it's posting a story that's anti-liberal.
Yeah.
But individual stories may or may not be biased, but there are also overall trends. Like, for instance, if the New York Times were to print stories about George Bush, where 56% of them were anti-Bush, and 35% of them were pro-Bush, and 9% of them were neutral or unsure, it would exactly line up with public opinion. So even if they printed stories about George Bush that were that were bad almost twice as often as stories that were good, they'd still be doing what the public wants. And in that case, they could be said to be pandering to the public. Could you really say that they have a liberal bias in that case, if they just reflect popular opinion?
Again, that gets into very hazy territory because, again, what exactly are the things that they're reporting? Are they just
Right.
are they doing actual news, or is it just saying, yep, this is another sucky day in Iraq? And so, what's actually being reported? How is it being spun? Things like that.
Right.
Are they reporting the news, or are they purposely in some way spinning
Are they
it?
putting some kind of spin on it?
Exactly,
And in fact,
to make it.
that's actually a third category of ways that the media could behave, because I went over, they could be reporting the truth, they could be pandering to public opinion, or a third thing is they could be exerting deliberate editorial bias on news stories. Now, I don't have a problem with having an editorial bias. I mean, like, I read editorial pages.
Yeah.
I like to read people's opinions.
As long as you know what it is up front.
Right.
As long as you know that this is an editorial opinion versus news.
Yes, I mean, because you should always bear in mind that opinion is not news.
Exactly.
Despite what cable news trends towards more and more.
Yes.
Where, I mean, like a couple of years ago, you had Jon Stewart, who, in my opinion, hosts the only TV news show worth watching. And I'll say that over and over again. Jon Stewart went on that show.
Yes.
What is
Hannity
it? Tucker Carlson and that other guy, Paul Begala. Crossfire.
Yeah, it's not. I don't know. Anyway.
And he went on this
Crossfire.
show where the format of the show is, thanks studio, I know it's Crossfire. The format of the show is that you got somebody who's kind of liberal and somebody who's kind of conservative, and they invite a guest on, and they all yell at each other.
Yeah, they kind of duke it out.
And they treat that as if it were the news, a bunch of guys with opinions, instead of reporting and journalism. And Jon Stewart went on the show, and they were like, okay, you're a comedian, be funny. And, and Jon Stewart said, I just came to say you're hurting America. And they didn't like that very much.
That had to be one of the funniest clips I have seen in a long, long time.
Yeah.
Of him on that show. He really rips into them about hurting America and not reporting and pandering and such. It was a while ago, but
yeah, and that's the format of that show. But
Yeah.
I mean, that format sometimes bleeds over into other mainstream media outlets. But you know, there's different kinds of bias, and you can be biased in favor of the truth and verifiable evidence and facts, like science is supposed to be at its best. And that's not really bias. Or you can be biased in favor of pandering to the public. And that's kind of getting into shakier territory. But again, if you are mostly in agreement with the public's opinion, then, you know, in one sense, you're not really being biased in the way that some people would like you to claim. Let me give you an example. And again, a lot of the things that I say are on the blog this week. atheistexperience.blogspot.com. I have a link from there to my blog where I have a story that talks about Blackwater.
Okay.
Blackwater is this very, in my opinion, I'm distinguishing fact from opinion.
Editorializing here.
Blackwater is this very shady private security firm which got a contract to do a large amount of the sort of defense work of the military that used to be handled by things like military sergeants and Marines, like escorting diplomats around. But they're a private contracting organization. So one of the consequences of that is that your typical is that on average hold on. Okay, on average, a single contractor from Blackwater costs us $445,891 per year in your tax money.
Wow.
As compared to a military sergeant who, including salary, room, and board, costs $69,000 a year. That's like almost as little as a tenth as much. So there are these massive amounts of money going to this corporation called Blackwater, which is not part of the military, so they're not subject to the military code of justice. So you have things like this recent incident where Blackwater went and shot up a bunch of Iraqi civilians.
Yeah.
It was confirmed, and that's journalism, where, let's see, they killed 14 civilians, and then they weren't subject to any code of justice after that. I mean, the guy who was in charge, as far as I can tell, got fired.
Okay.
That's it.
Yeah.
If he was in the military, he'd get court-martialed. If he did this in America, where he went out and shot a bunch of people, he'd be arrested, tried, and probably convicted as a mass murderer and given some very harsh sentence. If he was subject to Iraqi law, who the hell knows what would happen to him?
Yeah.
You know, maybe he would
Yeah.
have his head cut off on television. I mean, I don't know. That's not the Iraqi government that does that sort
Yeah.
of thing. That's private vigilantes
Yeah.
in or terrorists,
That's
as we
the
like
people
to
we're
call
trying
them.
to fight.
Right. So we're not for head cutting. But the fact is, Blackwater isn't subject to any of these things. They're not subject to American law. They're not subject to military law. They're not subject to Iraqi law. And the worst that happened to this guy is they got fired.
Okay.
So there was congressional hearings on that this week. I don't think anything's particularly resolved. And just to make this relevant to the topic of the Atheist Experience and make it extra scary, the dude who runs Blackwater, Eric Prince, is a prominent member of an evangelical political group called Christian Freedom International.
Wow.
He's well connected in politics because he's the brother-in-law. His sister is married to Dick DeVos, who is heir to the Amway fortune, and is also a big Republican contributor.
Yeah.
This story sounds really bad for Republicans. Is
Granted.
reporting on it liberal bias? I mean, just saying the things that I said without an editorial slant sounds really bad.
Yeah.
And when I say that, I sound biased, even though, in fact, it's true. And I'm just saying, when you come down to it, that bias is kind of a matter of perspective of bias towards what? Because some kinds of bias, like a deliberate editorial slant that's out of step with the facts and out of step with public opinion, should not be treated as reality. People should be allowed to say it. I mean, with Ben Stein's example, you shouldn't, people can be expelled now for just thinking about intelligent design, which they can't. But I mean, I love blogs. I love opinion. I love editorial pages. I'm interested in people's opinions, but it's not news. And I think that science should very much be biased in favor of presenting an accurate picture of reality. And journalism should, and often is not, but should be in the business of investigating things, finding out reality, and reporting it accurately. And if appearing to report the news accurately conveys an element of bias, that shouldn't make them shy away from reporting things as they happen.
No.
And even expressing opinions that highlight the fact that this story makes some people look really bad. I don't call that bad bias.
No. it's also a matter of how the story is presented and very often which facts are being presented.
True.
I mean, they come out with a news story tomorrow. We're going to increase benefits to seniors by 50%. Yay, excellent, great. And then they come out on another channel saying, we're going to increase your taxes by 20% to pay for the increase.
Right.
And so it's which of these two facts are you going to present and which one are you going to give more focus to? That, Congress is, voting to take away more of your money and give it away to people who are, not working.
Sure, yeah.
So.
And, when you present one side of the story, I mean, I would be in favor of reporting that story as, a balancing issue between two factors. We're going to spend this much money.
Yeah.
It's going to cost you this, and it's going to have the following benefits. May even save money in certain areas. May be worth it, maybe not. Can
we report? You decide.
Yeah. But when Fox News decides that, and when Fox News says that, and I have a very biased view of Fox News, honestly, I'm of the opinion that when Fox News says we report, you decide, what they're reporting on makes less effort than the usual media outlets to actually go out and verify whether the stuff they're saying is true. So we report the things we think. We won't do any actual effort to factually back that up, and you decide based on the complete lack of information that we presented you with. But that's my bias. That's just my general feeling about Fox News.
All right, a couple quick announcements. One announcement I forgot to do, we're going to be getting calls in just a minute. Again, phone lines are open. Phone number was on your screen, and we'll be back again very shortly. Again, if you got any questions, comments, things on the topic, other questions for us, please go ahead and use your phone and get to us. One more quick announcement, though. After the show, we are going to go down to IHOP on Cesar Chavez and I-35 just after the show. The show ends at 5 o'clock. Show ends at 4:30. We'll be down there about 5 o'clock. And again, any atheist-friendly people, more than welcome to come down and meet us. Don't need to be a member of the group or anything like that. But if you are coming down there to preach, proselytize, or provoke, please stay away. We're down there for meal and fun socializing, and if you have any questions or comments or debates, now is the time to get to it. Phone number that will be up shortly. Again, phone calls. Chuck, you there?
Yes.
How are you?
Just fine. I was listening and I heard him talk about the Blackwater and that the Prince guy. I think that was his name, Prince.
Eric Prince, yeah.
He's their spokesman, I guess.
Right.
And it's interesting that you said that he was a big Republican donor, because I mean, I'm not surprised by that, because, and I was wondering if you knew that just a couple of months ago there was a Blackwater, a company, Blackwater, that went public on the New York Stock Exchange. And I'm thinking that's the same Blackwater that's doing the security in Iraq. And is that right? Do you know?
I don't really know that. Let me see. What is the... Hold on. This is terrible television.
We can get our crack team of researchers behind the scenes to try and come up with an answer for you.
That's
unfortunately
the beauty of the internet. Yeah, great. Yeah.
Yeah, I love it. I love the
Blackwater.
21st century. I love it that we're wired in here while we're on camera.
Yeah, that's good. Because I guess Blackwater would come up, but anyway, I'm if it is the same, and it'd be interesting to see how much there's.
How is their stock faring these days?
Yeah, exactly. I was thinking that if their stock has just gone through the roof, then I wouldn't be surprised, especially since if this is the same guy that's making all the Republican contributions.
Well, I think for something like this, it might have tanked.
Well, you would think so, yeah.
Because again, this is going to be bad reporting on the company. It's going to create a lot of doubt and confusion.
Yeah, but I mean, the thing is, they've already had tons of money kicked over to them. I mean, at this point, they may well tank. But I mean, Eric Prince, I imagine, would have advanced word that it was going to tank and pull crap loads of his stock out of.
But then we can get him for insider trading.
Well, so it was the same. I mean, did you find that out?
Don't know.
Was it
No,
the same
I don't
Blackwater?
see that as being
Yeah, not sure.
being on the stock exchange,
it's
or
not
at least
coming up. Oh, okay.
my rapid Googling skills aren't up to the task right now.
And you know, well, and you were talking about. I have a story about Fox News, and I was just remembering years ago, I don't even remember his name now, the basketball player that raped the girl and up in Colorado, and she was suing him. I don't remember his name. Anyway,
That's
whenever
kind
it
of
was
one of the
going
fluff
to court,
stories I would be. What?
Whenever it was going to court, Fox News was, they were right there on top of it, but they never could show the girl's, the court order, you could not show the girl's face. They didn't want her identity to be known. So I remember one day they caught her coming out of the bathroom going back to court, and so they just filmed her feet. and for literally, it was my day off and I was watching it, for hours, they showed this girl's feet walking from the bathroom back to the courtroom. Like this was news.
Okay.
Yeah, and that's exactly the kind of thing that was motivating me to do this thesis topic. I mean, anytime somebody has to, get in front of a camera and talk nonstop for, 30 minutes, an hour, or they're bound to say some stupid things, Yeah. But you were talking about the spin. What angers me is whenever they take some ridiculous topic and put this spin on it like, man, this is the greatest thing. You can't miss this coming up right after these.
Yeah. And unfortunately, that story is usually somewhat vaguely interesting, but it's 3 commercial breaks away.
Yeah, yeah, exactly.
Well,
I mean,
that's part of the
what
business.
They're about is selling their product.
Yeah, yeah.
Well, anyway.
Okay, we did get quick notice. I think this is from our crack team of researchers. Blackwater is actually private. Blackstone is a company that went public.
Blackstone, okay. It's not affiliated with Blackwater.
So presumably that would be completely different.
Okay,
went public in June.
Yeah.
Okay.
So yeah, that would be presumably completely different. So,
okay.
All right.
Thanks.
Okay, thanks, Sean. Yes, we have a crack team of researchers on the internet, keeping us up to date.
And as we all know, the internet is always right.
Exactly.
The prestigious internet.
Exactly. Never wrong.
Right. And that was Kobe Bryant, as if you cared, who was accused of.
Oh yeah, that's right. That's right. That's right. The basketball player or whatever.
And I don't even remember which side I'm supposed to be on in that case. That's how much attention I paid to it.
You were on the side of truth and righteousness.
That's right, except I was on the side of not giving a crap. I mean, it's not that I'm like for...
Uncaring.
It's not that I'm for rape.
Of course.
It's just that individual examples of unusually high-profile people doing bad stuff is only mildly relevant to anything that would happen in my life.
Yeah.
Whereas...
What is it? I can't remember. Got in a motorcycle accident recently.
I don't know. And I don't
Someone
care.
was in a motorcycle accident recently, and he's been to the hospital and stuff like that. But it was, as compared to George Clooney.
Stop
Thank
that.
you. You guys rock. George Clooney. And again, I mean, it was, as motorcycle accidents go, relatively minor. But he's on every single day.
Yeah.
So, anyway.
I like George Clooney.
He's apparently not good on the motorcycle.
But I still don't know or care about his cycling abilities.
All right. Anyway, more callers. Again,
I mean, the guy is an actor, so I care about his acting abilities,
acting skills, and accomplishments in that
And
arena.
when he appears in public saying something about politics, I care whether what he says is coherent and seems to be appropriate.
Now, again, that's an area where, Clooney comes out and says something, or the
What I'm
the
saying
girls
is,
are,
I don't.
Dixie Chicks come out and say something. I'm figuring until they get elected officials, until they become elected officials, I don't really care all that much what they say about politics.
I don't agree with that.
Okay.
And here's why. There are lots of people who have valid opinions on politics without being elected officials.
True.
I mean, we put a lot of people in front of a microphone who have absolutely no, special position except that they're behind a microphone. The fact that sometimes people are famous just for spouting a bunch of stuff about politics.
Yeah.
I don't think that somebody who's already famous and then decides to spout off about politics should necessarily be discounted just on the grounds of being famous. Because a lot of people, I'm not famous.
Okay.
I don't hold political office, and yet here you are listening to what I say.
You're right. Let's go back to colors.
I'm totally. I'm all into opinion, and I don't want to discount it. I just am advocating the separation of opinion from fact and journalism and science.
Okay. All right. Anyway, back to callers. Again, quick note, phone number is on your screen. We are live right now, and if you want to give us a call,
Okay,
please
shut
do.
up about George Clooney
fine.
already. Not you. I'm talking to the studio.
Yes, apparently
Keep
40
getting
hospital
messages
workers.
explaining the George Clooney story to us.
All right. Joe, you there?
Yeah,
How are you?
I'm fine. You guys have a celebrity bias for openers.
We do?
And you shouldn't make remarks about people in front of mics saying stupid things for 30 minutes. But the reason I called, and I got somebody straighten you out on Blackwater and
Okay.
Yeah.
Blackstone, but the reason I called is these guys over there that are these civilian guards, they have an extreme bias. It's called not getting killed.
Okay.
And when somebody comes running at you with a robe on, you don't know whether they're an Iraqi civilian with 3 kids at home or a terrorist.
Okay.
Now, you figure out how to sort that out, and we won't have any problem with guys killing
All right, but let me
innocent
ask you a
people.
question. Do military people get in trouble when they attack civilians?
We're not
They kill
arguing
lot
that
of
it's a
them by
difficult
accident.
job.
They killed thousands of them in Vietnam. There was only one big court-martial over all that nonsense.
Okay.
You guys are too young to remember that, I guess.
I'm actually afraid that I am, yes.
It was a
Okay.
while ago.
Keep
but-
up the good work. Bye.
Okay.
So, all right. Thanks for calling.
I will say, though, I mean, that there was an issue that serves as a good example of military personnel getting in trouble for going after civilians with no evidence,
Yeah.
which is Abu Ghraib.
Yes.
And in that case, there was really only one person who got in hot water for that, and that was Lindy England,
Yeah.
right?
Yeah.
She was subject to some kind of accounting, but still the same excuses were thrown out, like, oh, this person, oh, these people were terrorists, they were in jail, so they must have done something. But I mean, that's an example of where military justice at least has some kind of say about doing something unethical. But I mean,
Exactly.
there's a lot of fishy stuff in this Blackwater story that doesn't indicate that this was just a bunch of crazy people rushing at them.
Yeah. Yeah. So, and again, accountability is more than just what actually happens. I mean, unfortunately, things do break down.
Right.
Accidents are made.
Even when you're in a situation where it can be difficult to tell apart people who are trying to kill you from people who aren't, right? There still need to be some kind of consequences when you cross the line, because if there isn't some kind of response to just gunning down civilians, then what the message that sends is that basically this is acceptable behavior. So if you want to keep yourself safe, all you have to do is gun down anybody who looks Arab,
Yeah.
who looks suspicious to you, and you won't get in any trouble for it.
Yeah.
I think we can all agree, hopefully even the last caller who's off the line now, that there is and should be a limitation to how much you're allowed to do in the name of protecting yourself.
Of course, and we're not trying to say that the job over there is easy and they should be able to immediately tell, the good guys from the bad guys. It's not that simple, obviously, but yeah, there definitely are and should be consequences for making mistakes.
Yes.
So and bad decisions.
Otherwise, they're not really mistakes. They're just policy.
Exactly. Yeah.
We need more callers. This is an unusually slow Sunday.
Yep. Again, phone numbers on your screen if you got any questions or comments on anything that we're talking about today. Or
by the way, there is no God and you can't prove it.
Exactly. You're all wrong.
Yeah, and you're delusional.
All right, so here's a slightly different story that we can go on to. Actually, I'll go over this quickly.
Okay.
Quick quiz for you.
Okay.
This is one that I found in a couple different stories here. 10 Commandments being no match for a Big Mac. What are the ingredients on a Big Mac? 7 of them.
2 all-beef patties. I don't want to say that I know.
Oh, okay. We'll trust you on that one.
I've just forgotten.
Okay, and we don't need our crack team of researchers on this. Thank you. Okay, but what about 10 Commandments? How many of them can you
I definitely know like 8 of them.
Okay, well.
But then I don't believe in them. So I don't think that they should get special treatment as something you're supposed to know.
Agreed. Which of them can you name, though?
I can name
quick quiz.
A lot of the bad ones that a lot of people probably couldn't name. Let's see.
Okay.
Okay, no gods before me.
Okay.
No working. The Sabbath, is keeping the Sabbath holy one of them?
Let me see. Remember the Sabbath.
Okay, thank you. No graven images, which is one that a lot of Christians forget.
Yep.
Okay, then I'll go for the easy ones. Don't kill, don't steal, don't bear false witness, don't covet. And in one version of the 10 Commandments, there's 2 don't covet. And in the other, there's just 1, but there's no graven images.
Yeah, well, slightly different versions here.
Okay, but I did the graven images, so I'll just go with 1 not coveting.
Okay.
Honor your father and mother.
Okay.
That's 8. That's how many I said I could get. But also adultery.
Yes.
Yes. Okay.
1 more.
1 more. Line.
God damn it! How don't you know this?
What?
Lord's name in vain.
Oh, shit. I mean,
God damn it.
Then what the hell? By God, I swear I'll never do that again.
9 out of 10, quite impressive.
Thank you. What's the average?
The average is pitifully low. Let me see, and it's mostly about, what is it? 1,000 Americans, 80% could name the hamburger's primary ingredient, 2 all-beef patties. Less than 60%.
You know, even if you haven't seen the commercial, you'd probably know that.
Yeah, if you don't know what the heck a Big Mac is made of.
Patties.
But anyway, less than 60% recalled the commandment, "Thou shalt not kill," and that's kind of one of the biggies.
That's one of the more marketed ones.
Exactly.
Because
killing, stealing.
Don't make graven images is kind of an inconvenient one.
Yeah, the Sabbath.
Right.
Don't follow that too much. 45% recalled
and of course,
father and
this
mother.
is WorldNet Daily.
Yes, it is.
Which, in the sake of full disclosure, has a huge not liberal bias.
Let me see. What else?
And so they're
do they have
probably
here?
very much in favor of people knowing more of the 10 Commandments.
Actually, it says here, less than 60% recalled commandment, "Thou shalt not kill." Among churchgoers, 70% recalled, "Thou shalt not kill."
Okay.
So, but still, and it goes way down after that for different ones. But again, the numbers who got the right ingredients on a Big Mac was better than the people who could name the 10 Commandments or even get, a respectable number of them. So.
Also, while we're at it, happy, dopey, sleepy, sneezy, doc, bashful, and grumpy.
Exactly.
Thank you
All
very
right.
much. I'm here all week.
And again, phone numbers on your screen. We're going to be going out to IHOP after the show. So again, any atheist-friendly people, welcome to come down there and meet us and chat and have some breakfast. Getting back callers, we
Can
have...
you give me a second on this one? I want to make sure I look this up.
No, sorry. Chuck, you're on the line.
Damn it.
Yeah, I
Yes,
was just.
Chuck.
I called. I was wanting to talk about the Blackwater, but y'all moved on to the 10 Commandments.
That's okay.
You want to?
We can go back.
We can go. Well, I don't want to get struck by lightning or anything. Is that all right?
We'll
okay.
try.
Well, you were talking about there's a right way to do it and there's a wrong way to do it.
Right.
And I think that if their job is to escort a diplomat across town and they have to kill 14 people to do it, well, that's the wrong way to do it.
I would think so too.
It reminds me of the action there in I don't remember the country, the Black Hawk Down.
Yeah.
What country was that? Anyway, they were that whole mission
Somalia.
was they were going to arrest one person.
Yeah.
That's all they were going to do, and they ended up killing who knows how many people were killed,
Yeah.
and how many Americans were killed, and if that's what you got to do to go arrest one person, well, you're doing it all wrong. And right after that, Bill Clinton was president at that time, and right after that, he pulled out of that area. They had the carrier off the shore, and he pulled that carrier out of there. And all of the people in the military said, exactly what they were told to say, that we shouldn't have cut and run. But I agree with Clinton 100%. If that's the best those guys can do, we need to we need to get them out of there.
Yeah.
And they need to be replaced with people who can get the job done without murdering a bunch of people.
Yeah.
And if that's the way Blackwater operates in Iraq, well, they got to go.
Yeah, and I want to throw out one other thing out there, which is that another way that the media is often charged with bias by people who would like to see a more conservative media, let's say, is to say, all the media ever reports is the bad news from Iraq. They don't report the stories of this school that was painted or the fact that people had the elections. And yet those are the same people who would probably make the excuse for Blackwater that basically, well, when you're in Iraq, you never know who's going to come and try to kill you. So, you just have to go with self-defense and shoot these 14 people, including 2 people who are driving with a little kid in their car, because you don't know if they're going to come and kill you. I would like to submit that there aren't very many places in America where you would go and feel like you just have to shoot a whole bunch of civilians in order to feel safe. And if that's the way that things are in Iraq, then I wouldn't say that painting a school is the most important news coming out. You know what I mean?
Sure.
Okay.
Yeah, and it's just like Bush said that whenever he said the end of hostilities in Iraq, well, we've lost more lives since he said that than whenever we invaded in the first place. And another thing, that invasion was, they call it an invasion, and we supposedly just went in there and kicked ass and took over. Well, we fell for the oldest military trick in the book. They just backed off, let us come in, and then they surrounded us. And that's exactly what's going on over there right now. our military is surrounded, and they're just picking us off at will.
Okay.
We don't have a chance over there. The only thing that we can do is occupy and continue to die.
Okay. Well, before we get too much farther off topic.
We're going to get a lot of emails about this show, I bet you.
Yeah, we're going to let you go at that. Like, so
All
this
right,
is getting
thanks.
a bit too far off.
Okay.
So. All right. Thanks, Sean.
Well, I mean, I brought up Blackwater, and
Yeah.
you know, it's part of the topic, and people aren't calling with the usual questions. You know, how can you not think there's a God? Look at all the trees. So, you know, we're going to talk about what the callers are interested in.
Okay. But we can try and put other fodder out there and see what happens.
Okay.
This is a story that's come up a couple times over here of varying degrees. We've had a couple different stories where people who are working at pharmacies of some kind have refused to sell birth control pills, morning after pills, things like that.
Oh, yeah.
Because it's against their religion, and people are kind of asking, is this their right, or does the business is the business allowed to fire people for this, or make it concessions or whatever? This is actually a story from the Times Online in London about some Muslim medical students who are now refusing to take any classes. Some Muslim medical students are refusing to attend lectures or answer exam questions on alcohol-related or sexually transmitted diseases because they claim it offends their religious beliefs. Some trainee doctors say learning to treat diseases conflicts with their faith, which states that Muslims should not drink alcohol and rejects sexual promiscuity. A small number of Muslim medical students have even refused to treat patients of the opposite sex. One male student was prepared to fail his final exam rather than carry out a basic examination of a female patient. Now, on one hand,
that guy is in the wrong profession.
Exactly. I am of the opinion that these students have every right to do that. The medical school has every right to laugh at them and say, then you're not going to even approach becoming a medical, you're not going to graduate and pass this course if you're not willing to learn about the topics at hand.
Yeah, I mean,
and so
there aren't any. This is in America, right?
No, this is actually in the UK.
Okay, but I mean, it's in England, and they don't really have any boys-only doctors. Well, I mean, maybe they do. I mean, there are people who go into a gynecological profession and are essentially girls-only doctors.
Yeah. Not seeing too many men there.
I don't know.
But I would think that when you're studying to become a doctor, at least, especially alcohol and drug-related and sexually transmitted
kind of
diseases,
involves learning stuff about the body.
Exactly, and how to deal with these things. You don't have to promote becoming an alcoholic to be able to treat alcohol-related diseases.
Right.
And things like that. It's ridiculous. And again, the school should have every right to say, well, then you're not becoming a doctor.
Sure.
And every medical professional should have every right to laugh at them and say, you want to call yourself a doctor, but you don't actually want to study what becoming a doctor is at least partly about.
And that actually very much ties into the topic, because I can see the Muslim student coming back and suing the medical school on the grounds that, hey, these people are biased. They're, they're against my religion because I don't want to touch certain people's bodies or whatever.
Yeah.
And so they won't let me in. And to which the school's best defense would be like, yes, absolutely. We are biased in favor of passing people who would be competent as doctors.
Exactly.
And we're biased against passing people who would damage their profession. So tough stuff.
Yeah, these are required topics to graduate.
Yeah.
You did not pass them, therefore you fail, therefore you're not a doctor.
Yeah.
Simple as that.
Otherwise, can you have math grads who say trigonometry is against my religion?
Exactly. It involves graven images.
The Bible says pi is 3. I refuse to teach this, to learn this godless crap.
All right. Again, phone number's on your screen. Let's get back to a couple callers. Mike, you there?
Yeah, I was going to say something about the students that refuse to study those things. What I think is that if these drama queens, if they would just, here's what they do. don't go to the class, don't learn it. And when here comes the test, there's a lot of questions about, look at this, maybe I should have gone and studied it.
Yeah.
This also makes me think of, say, a fireman learning how to be a fireman, and I don't approve of arson at all. I really don't approve of it. So I'm not
Thank you for getting that on the record.
Good point.
and I'm a cook myself. I mean, I didn't go to culinary school, but I've been in chef thing for over 30 years, and if I said, I really don't like liver,
Yeah.
But, one of the tests was on like foie gras. I said, I really object to it. Well, guess what? But you don't get our certification. And also the First Amendment goes into it, whether Congress shall make no law respecting religion, and so forth. So that was just my point. Thank you.
Yeah. Okay, thanks, Sean.
Thanks for calling.
And this also goes back, again, there were some stories about over here from different pharmacies where some techs were not selling these items to customers. And I mean, on one hand, I'm kind of torn about that in the sense that the store should be able to decide what products it's going to sell. If the pharmacy in, store X doesn't want to sell these products, they don't have to carry them. And that's fine. But I would think that if you're going to carry it, you have to ensure that your employees will actually sell it. And again, it's up to the employees. If they don't want to sell that stuff, don't work there. If you don't want to treat somebody for sexually transmitted diseases or alcohol-related problems, don't become a doctor, because you're going to get those things. Anyway, going back to callers, we've got Al. You there?
Yeah.
How you doing?
I'm in the medical field. I do medical ultrasound.
Okay.
And, if I were to refuse to do an ultrasound on a woman who I knew was thinking about having an abortion, I would be fired. I mean, that's it. You don't do your job, then you don't work here. And
but could you sue for something like that?
Right. And so these religious people don't want to do the job that's necessary to treat people to try and make them better, then, get out of the medical field. That you're not in the medical profession is having enough problems as it is. You don't need those people making it worse.
Yeah, I mean, I don't think that we want physicians and pharmacists, for that matter, making religious judgments on whether to do something that could potentially save your life. I mean, to take a kind of silly example, if I was getting treated by an Orthodox Jew who said, well, I don't approve of your lifestyle because you've been eating pork, so I'm not going to treat you, which is kind of analogous to, I think, some of the stories that have come from pharmacies lately. I think that would be a problem.
Right.
And actually, I was just trying to look this up. Since you're in the medical profession, can you tell me if there's anything in the Hippocratic Oath about not refusing to treat a person who needs it, or am I just making that up?
Well, I'm not a doctor, so
okay.
I'm not really qualified to answer that. But the Hippocratic, I would assume the Hippocratic Oath has something to do with, you take care of the people, you do the best you can, if somebody comes to you and they're in need, you should treat them. Yeah. I mean, that's kind of what I think. That's my own opinion. I mean, that's what I think. But something else that gets me is like, what is it with, why is science seems to be under such, under fire so much? I mean, not only from religious people, but when scientists say that there's a problem with global warming and that humans are one of the reasons there's global warming, everybody is like, not everybody, I shouldn't generalize, but there's a lot of people that, say, well, they debunk the science, they debunk the scientists, to me, unless when somebody proves something scientifically with the scientific method, then then that's, that's pretty much it. I mean, science evolves, over time, and it keeps evolving and evolving. But I just don't understand what this whole deal with, being against science and saying things like, well, faith says this.
Yeah.
Well, okay, faith, okay, that's good that you have faith, but science says this, and this is how you prove science.
Yeah.
You have the scientific method, and you prove it that way.
Yeah,
so,
our reality trumps your faith.
Right. So anyway, thanks for taking my call, and I like your show.
Okay.
Thank you.
Thanks for calling.
Okay. Bye.
And again, any atheist-friendly people, welcome to come down and join us. We are going to IHOP after the show. Show's over in about 10 minutes, and we'll be there about 5 o'clock. And again, that's on Cesar Chavez and I-35, the IHOP down there. And again, welcome to come down and join us. Yeah, I mean, again, science, from what I kind of view is it's almost a black box to a lot of people who don't understand the process.
Yeah.
And it's also a lot of confusing terminology, if you're
Right.
not in there. Again, the common use of the word theory is a good idea. And so
Which isn't,
the theory of evolution, the good idea of evolution versus the good idea of intelligent design, hey, they should fight it out.
Yeah, I mean, unfortunately, understanding science requires you to know stuff. And then
Darn it.
That means that you have to apply your brain and think and study and figure things out. And in that sense, science is very much a black box to people who don't know stuff.
Yeah.
But it's a white box, which actually is used in computer science to indicate a box whose contents are known. It's a box that anyone can look inside, and anything in science that actually is a black box and can't be investigated
is a big problem.
Is generally, by the scientific method, supposed to be thrown out.
Yeah, yeah. Pretty much anything in science you can look up for yourself. You can read it. You can see all the studies that have been done.
And it may take you years of study to get to the point where you understand a specific field well enough to get what they're saying.
Exactly.
But that doesn't mean that it's a black art or that there are these people who are trying to keep you out just because they want to exert an editorial bias over it.
Exactly. So, all right. Again, let's get back to callers. Randy, you there?
Yeah, how you guys doing today?
Pretty good.
Quite well.
Good. I would like to say up front that I don't disagree with what you guys say in any way, shape, or form. I don't necessarily agree with everything you say. I'm not a Christian. I'm not an agnostic. I'm not an atheist. I'm, I guess, a realist.
Okay.
I look at things
Then you'd be an atheist.
in real
No, just kidding.
terms, and to me, what religion accomplishes in this day and time is just a prop for another control and divide and conquer for our governments. Now, having said that, if you go back to show my way of thinking, if you go back to supposedly Christ's time or Allah's time and all this kind of stuff, none of these people left a mountain carved out in granite of anything substantial that you can hang your hat on.
Yeah.
And all this word is trusted to man to carry forward hundreds and hundreds of years. And can you really trust man for much of anything, especially at this day and time?
Yeah.
It's just, to me, how can anybody even imagine? I can't say that there wasn't a Christ or a God or anything. I wasn't there when all of this supposedly was in motion. So, and I can't say that there wasn't,
Yeah,
So, in reality, I just look at things like, well, if I wasn't there and I didn't see anything and I didn't hear anything, how can I say, well, this happened and that happened and no proof or anything?
Well,
And I was in the printing business for 30 years. I can print you any kind of a Bible that you want, or Quran,
but to a certain extent,
I can make it say anything you want it to say.
Okay, but to a certain extent, it's more than just I didn't hear it, I didn't see it, I can't believe it.
Right. I mean, like science,
There's a lot more to it.
there is a certain amount of science of history where you trace a claim backward and corroborate it with different sources. And history is not an exact science, but there is a certain amount of science behind it to where you can apply degrees of certainty to say whether or not an event really probably happened. But I mean, in my opinion, I'll emphasize that, there's sort of something fundamentally wrong with the way of thinking that that everything, when it comes to morality and stuff, should come down to whether or not there was this one guy who said particular things.
Yeah.
Because figuring out the principles of morality is an ongoing process. It doesn't, even if there was a person named Jesus who said things like, the best way to be a good person is to sell all your stuff and give it to give the proceeds to the poor and follow me. Just because I know if he really said that doesn't mean that I accept he was right.
Well, yeah, and another thing that, you know, that I look at religions, you know, we all know. I'm supposing with the internet is available to us and everything now, we all know our food is being poisoned, our water is being poisoned, our air is being poisoned, and churches don't say anything to their people. Well, you know, you need to be looking at what's going on for your health and well-being, and you know, none of that's happening.
Yeah. Okay.
Thank you.
All right. Thanks, Sean.
Thank you.
And it's also another thing to look forward is how incredible or credible is the claim being made.
Mm-hmm.
There's a big difference between saying there was a war in 2000 BC.
Yeah.
That very likely could have happened.
That's a pretty big event, leaves a lot of evidence, lots of people write things down about it.
And also just the fact that there have been thousands of wars throughout human history.
Right.
It involves at least two people who are in a disagreement, and they start fighting about it. It's something
that never happens,
It's
though.
something that happens.
Yeah.
Now, if you're trying to make the claim that some universe-creating deity had a son, sent him down to Earth, and sacrificed him so that he could be happy again, that's a little bit more iffy. You got to provide a little bit more for that than, there was a war.
Yeah.
So,
by the way, since we have a couple of minutes left,
okay.
I did pull up some more information about that Blackwater incident, which said that a Toyota with a woman and child was driving slowly toward the Blackwater people and ignored a police officer's whistle to clear a path for the envoy, and then the soldiers started firing at the Toyota. But then it also goes on to say that after that incident, they opened fire randomly at a bunch of citizens, and then further down it says that one member of the Blackwater security team continued to fire on civilians despite urgent ceasefire calls from his colleagues, and the incident was only resolved after another Blackwater contractor pointed his own weapon at the man still firing and ordered him to stop. Okay. Now that guy should get in trouble.
All right. Thanks, everybody, for watching. Thank you, Russell, for coming on and helping out.
Thank you. Show. Enjoyed it.
Matt should be on again next week. And again, if you didn't get on the air or have any questions or comments that you think about, you can always reach us via email, tv@atheist-community.org, and we will get that. We get all the emails. We read them all. Don't necessarily reply to them all, but we certainly try. Everybody have a great week, and we'll see you next week.
Bye.